During World War II, a group of newly enlisted American soldiers were sent straight to the front lines before they even had time for proper training. But they didn't seem to realize how serious things were, and instead they gathered around casually playing cards. The next second, a loud rumble echoed above them, and everyone instinctively looked up, listening carefully. In an instant, the entire ship sank into the depths of the ocean, taking all the recruits down with it. However, Leo miraculously surfaced, pulling his best friend up with him. Then he took big gulps of the air above the sea. But just then, several fighter planes circled above like eagles. To avoid being spotted, he held his breath and dove back underwater, hiding beneath the surface until the danger passed. By sheer luck, he survived the battle. Leo climbed onto a piece of wreckage with his unconscious friend Will and immediately started performing CPR. After Leo's persistent efforts, Will finally regained consciousness. Suddenly, a deafening explosion rang out. When they turned around, they saw their ship completely destroyed and sinking into the sea. In the vast, endless ocean, the two men were now barely hanging on to life. Refusing to sit and wait for death, Leo decided to dive back into the water to collect any useful supplies, hoping to improve their chances of survival. Not far away, Will heard someone shouting in anger. It turned out to be another surviving soldier, firing his half-loaded machine gun wildly into the sky, venting his rage. Then, a dark shadow flashed quickly beneath the waves, instantly catching his attention. He gripped his gun tightly, eyes fixed on the water, watching every ripple with tense vigilance. But the next second, Will heard the man's terrified scream. He shouted for him to swim over, but the soldier vanished from sight, dragged beneath the waves by something unseen. At that moment, Leo found some gasoline in barrels. He quickly handed them to Will, then went back to look for more supplies. While sorting through what they had, Will noticed strange movements nearby. He cautiously approached to investigate. It turned out to be their comrade, Thompson. At this moment, Leo had finished searching and regrouped with Will. He noticed that Thompson had a severe head injury and seemed to have no memory of the attack. Leo hurried to bandage his wounds. Soon after, the three men heard low growls nearby, and Leo quickly called out in response. Moments later, a rubber boat approached, carrying 4 more survivors. All of them were injured, and 2 were in especially critical condition. But there were no medical supplies, and they could only watch helplessly as the wounded tried to endure their pain. Now there were 7 survivors in total. No one dared to make a sound, fearing the enemy might hear them and launch another attack. By the next day, Leo and the others began counting their remaining supplies. They were shocked to find they had almost no food and not a drop of fresh water. Everyone fell silent. Based on his experience, Will judged that they were still close to enemy territory. Staying put and waiting for rescue was unrealistic. The enemy's patrols would likely find them first, and then no one would survive. Fortunately, a thick fog surrounded them, and there wasn't even a breeze. The fog wasn't going to lift anytime soon, which meant the enemy wouldn't spot them easily. Just then, a noise came from behind. Everyone turned in alarm. One of them guessed it might be a sea creature, and after hearing that, the others didn't think much of it. They started discussing how to escape, but the more they talked, the more hopeless it felt. Waiting for rescue seemed futile. They'd likely be discovered before help arrived, but rowing back to shore also seemed impossible with their limited resources. They were trapped between despair and death, and many had already lost hope. That's when Will spotted a motorboat in the distance. Like drowning men seeing a lifeline, everyone's eyes locked onto it, and they began debating who should swim over. But the next second, a massive shark suddenly erupted from the water. Moments later, Bobby burst out of the sea screaming. The shark had clamped its jaws around his lower body. He fought with all his strength, but against such a giant predator, his struggle was in vain. Soon, the water turned crimson, and only half of his body floated lifelessly on the surface. The horrifying sight froze everyone in fear. No one dared to go into the water, let alone swim toward the motorboat. From Leo's observation, it was a female great white shark, extremely aggressive and about 20 feet long. He warned everyone to lower their voices since sound travels fast and far underwater, and even a small noise could attract it. He also reminded the wounded to keep their blood from spilling into the water, as it could draw the shark back instantly. The 6 remaining survivors stayed completely still, praying the great white would leave them alone. But Thompson's wound worsened, blood seeping uncontrollably and spreading across the water's surface. Before long, the shark caught the scent of blood and charged upward, biting down on Stan in one swift motion. Leo reacted instantly, grabbing Stan's arm and refusing to let go, but the shark wouldn't release its grip. In that critical moment, another soldier threw a grenade into the sea. The explosion's shockwave forced the shark to retreat, and they managed to pull Stan back onto the surface. However, his left leg had been torn off, and without any medical equipment, they could only use a belt to tie off the wound and wrap it in bandages. But they all knew this was only a temporary fix, Stan wouldn't survive much longer. Still, no one dared to move, terrified of drawing the shark's attention again. Luckily, the shark didn't return that night. Leo looked at the floating debris and came up with an idea. He decided to risk his life and swim to the motorboat alone. He tied a rope around his waist, handed the other end to Will, and jumped onto a floating barrel without hesitation. The loud splash made everyone tense up, eyes fixed on the water. Then Leo jumped to the next piece of debris, but his foot slipped, plunging into the sea. Thankfully, it didn't alert the shark. He aimed for a third piece, but this time he wasn't as lucky. The noise caught the shark's attention. His comrades fired their guns, forcing the predator to retreat just in time, allowing Leo to escape unharmed. He finally reached the motorboat, quickly tied the rope to it, and signaled the others. They gripped the rope tightly and began pulling with all their strength. But just then, the great white shark turned back and began racing straight toward Leo. Seeing the shark getting closer and closer, Leo's comrades quickly pulled on the rope, trying to bring him back as fast as possible. But the shark was advancing rapidly, and in desperation, Leo grabbed a grenade, yanked the pin, and hurled it straight toward the oncoming predator. The explosion didn't kill the shark, but it gave Leo enough time to reunite safely with the others. Everyone thought they were finally saved, but to their shock, the motorboat's fuel line was damaged and couldn't start at all. Even worse, the great white shark had locked onto them again, circling relentlessly. Leo explained that this was one of the shark's hunting tactics and told everyone to stay as quiet as possible. The next second, the shark slammed into their makeshift raft. Leo realized it was now directly beneath them and urgently whispered for the others to turn off the searchlight, hoping the darkness would make the shark lose its target. But he clearly underestimated the shark's power. Just seconds after the lights went out, the floating debris beneath them was struck again, shaking everyone violently. One of the soldiers, Des, finally lost control and tried to throw a grenade to kill the shark, but Leo stopped him. They only had 2 grenades left, and they needed to use them wisely. Des took a deep breath and reluctantly followed Leo's orders. Fortunately, the great white didn't attack again that night. The 6 survivors managed to fall asleep until dawn, with Des still gripping a grenade in his hand. The others were jolted awake by a sudden explosion and were horrified to see that Des had accidentally blown up their comrade Stan. But Des showed no remorse. Instead, he kicked the mutilated body straight into the sea. Leo was furious at his actions, and the 2 men immediately began to fight. Will shouted at them to stop, reminding everyone that their top priority was disposing of the body before the smell of blood attracted the shark again. So the group worked together to push the corpse into the ocean. Now only 5 survivors remained, and despair filled their hearts. Leo suggested they eat some canned food to regain strength in case they had to fight later. But when he opened the can, he froze. It was completely empty. Someone had eaten everything. Suspicion instantly spread among the group. Then Thompson let out a loud burp, and everyone realized he was the one who had eaten it. Disgust and anger filled their faces. Leo wanted to teach him a lesson, but he was too weak to do anything. The sun broke through the fog, burning down on them relentlessly. The heat made their heads spin, and their throats were parched. Someone joked about drinking their own urine, and though it started as a joke, Leo decided to take it seriously. He took out an empty can, filled it, and drank it down in one gulp. The others were disgusted by what they saw, but knowing they had to survive, they hesitated for a few seconds before reluctantly doing the same. But fate played a cruel joke. Moments after they all forced it down, heavy rain suddenly poured from the sky. They couldn't help but laugh at themselves, the absurdity breaking through their misery for a brief moment. When the rain finally stopped, Will spotted an airplane in the distance. Des waved excitedly and lit a smoke flare, hoping to draw attention. But Will quickly sensed something was wrong, and Leo did too. Flames were flickering under the plane's wings. Before they could react, the plane opened fire, spraying bullets down on them. Leo immediately dove into the water, yelling for the others to follow. One soldier was too slow and got hit, his blood spilling into the sea and drawing the shark once again. The survivors who dove in managed to climb back onto the floating wreckage, but now they faced 2 threats: the shark below and the enemy plane above. As expected, the aircraft circled back for another attack. Leo grabbed a submachine gun and fired wildly at it. Under the rain of bullets, Des grabbed the wounded soldier and jumped into the water. Will didn't have time to think and followed them, leaving Leo alone to face the attack. But the enemy's firepower was overwhelming, and Leo was hit by bullets and collapsed. Underwater, Will was horrified to see Des push the wounded soldier away, letting him drift off as bait for the shark. It was clear Des wanted to use the soldier's blood to distract the predator so he could climb back to safety. When Will finally pulled himself back up, he saw Leo bleeding heavily and quickly bandaged his wounds. Meanwhile, Des stared in disbelief at the sky. The enemy plane had gone down in flames. It seemed that Leo had also hit the enemy plane, but there was no time to celebrate. Will told Leo what Des had done, exposing his betrayal. Both men condemned Des for his selfishness, accusing him of sacrificing a comrade just to save his own life. Instead of feeling ashamed, Des raised his voice, arguing that the wounded soldier would have died anyway, and that he had simply ended his suffering. Leo was enraged by his words and lunged at him again. Will stepped in to break them apart, pulling Des back, but as he did, Des's bloody arm dipped into the seawater. The shark struck instantly. Though Des survived, it tore off his arm, leaving him screaming in agony. No one knew how long had passed before the three finally calmed down, sitting in silence, exhausted and hollow. Then Will suddenly froze. Through the mist, he saw a shadowy figure drifting toward them through the water, holding a long blade. It was impossible to tell from afar whether the stranger was friend or foe, but as he drifted closer, Will recognized the uniform. It was the enemy pilot who had attacked them. Just as Will was about to throw their last grenade, the pilot dropped his blade into the water, showing he meant no harm. Seeing that, Will slowly lowered his grenade. But after all the betrayal he had witnessed, Leo no longer trusted anyone in front of him, and he decided to deal with the pilot himself. Just as Leo reached for the grenade in Will's hand, the pilot suddenly lunged forward, launching a surprise attack on Will. The grenade slipped from Will's grasp and rolled into the motorboat. In that moment, he realized that in the face of desperation, human nature could no longer withstand the test. He quickly grabbed a small knife nearby and engaged the pilot in a fierce struggle. But Will was just a rookie with no real combat experience, and after only a few exchanges, he was clearly at a disadvantage. Ignoring the pain from his wounds, Leo forced himself up and joined the fight against the pilot. Yet, injured and weak, Leo was no match for him. The pilot kicked him hard, sending him tumbling into the sea, which immediately drew the attention of the great white shark. The pilot then noticed Des sitting motionless to the side and assumed he was dead, so he turned his attention toward Will. In that critical moment, Will reacted quickly, grabbing the flask from the pilot's belt and smashing it into his face. The flask flew from his hand and splashed into the sea. Seeing his favorite drink sink beneath the waves, the pilot flew into a rage and began beating Will furiously. Meanwhile, Leo had finally managed to climb back onto the boat. Just as the pilot turned toward him, Des, who had been pretending to be dead, suddenly grabbed the pilot's leg. Des sacrificed himself in that instant. Leo and Will supported each other and climbed back onto the motorboat. But the massive explosion once again attracted the great white shark, which began circling them closely. Exhausted, the two men lay on the motorboat, imagining what it would be like to finally leave this place, going home to sip a bowl of hot soup, lying on a clean bed, and sleeping peacefully without having to live in fear of sharks or enemies ever again. But no matter how beautiful the fantasy, reality was far harsher. Leo's hand brushed against the fallen grenade, and after a moment of heavy thought, he decided to sacrifice himself. Just then, Will noticed a barrel floating nearby, filled with supplies. Before he could share the good news with Leo, Leo had already jumped into the sea. He swam straight toward the great white shark and shoved the grenade into its mouth. Will used every ounce of his strength to pull Leo back and immediately treated his wounds. Soon after, Leo passed out from the pain. When he finally woke up, Will had already repaired the motorboat. It turned out that the barrel contained a set of repair tools, and fortunately, Will knew how to fix engines. In the end, the two of them finally escaped that suffocating sea. Well, that's all for today. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.